Galactic Military Academy's main hall buzzed with the chatter of 100 different species, each speaking in their native tongues through universal translators. Tiana Chin stood near the back of the assembly, her worn leather jacket catching the artificial sunlight streaming through the crystalline dome overhead. The insignia on her shoulder, a faded eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch, drew curious glances from the other cadets. "What's that supposed to be?" A Veltrian cadet sneered, his 4 eyes blinking in succession as he pointed at Tiana's patch. His exoskeleton gleamed with polished military precision, bearing the fresh insignia of the Veltrian Defense Fleet. "Museum decoration." Laughter rippled through the nearby cadets. A Xinthian female with bioluminescent skin joined in, her melodic voice cutting through the mockery. "Is that from Earth? I heard they only joined the Galactic Council 30 cycles ago. What could they possibly know about real warfare?" Tiana's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. Her fingers brushed the worn fabric of the insignia unconsciously, a habit she developed over the years. The eagle's details had faded, the colors dulled by time and wear, but every thread held memories that these fresh-faced cadets couldn't begin to comprehend. Peter Morrison noticed the commotion from across the hall. The human cadet pushed through the crowd, his own academy uniform crisp and new. Unlike Tiana, he wore no old-world decorations, nothing to mark him as different from any other first-year cadet. But his eyes, sharp and calculating, took in the situation immediately. "Leave it alone," Peter said quietly to the Veltrian. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, another Earth dweller comes to defend ancient history," the Veltrian clicked. "Tell me, do all humans cling to their primitive past? The last Galactic War ended before your species even achieved faster-than-light travel." The assembly hall's doors suddenly hissed open, cutting through the conversation. Instructor Kaleth Thorne strode in, a veteran Draxian warrior whose scales bore the scars of countless battles. His reputation preceded him. He'd served in 3 major conflicts and trained some of the finest officers in the galactic military. The cadets snapped to attention immediately. Kaleth Thorne's reptilian eyes swept across the room, cataloging each cadet with predatory efficiency. Then they stopped, fixed on something. His massive frame went rigid, and a low hiss escaped his throat. Not of anger, but of something else entirely: recognition, respect, perhaps even fear. He moved through the crowd like a battleship cutting through space, cadets parting before him. He stopped directly in front of Tiana, his 7-foot frame towering over her. The hall fell silent. "Where did you get that insignia?" His voice was low, controlled, but everyone heard it. Tiana met his gaze steadily. "It belonged to my grandmother, sir." "Your grandmother?" Kaleth Thorne leaned closer, his clawed hand reaching toward the patch. He stopped just short of touching it, as if the faded fabric were sacred. "What was her name, cadet?" "Colonel Sarah Chun, sir. 42nd Expeditionary Force." The change in Kaleth Thorne's demeanor was instantaneous. The grizzled instructor, who'd never shown deference to anyone in his 20 years at the academy, stepped back and brought his fist to his chest in a formal military salute. Not the standard galactic acknowledgement, but something older, more profound. "The 42nd, he briefed the Terran volunteers. Confusion rippled through the assembly. The Veltrian cadet who'd mocked Tiana moments before looked between the instructor and the human girl. His confidence evaporating, Kaleth Thorne addressed the assembled cadets. His voice carried the weight of history. "You younglings know nothing. You wear your fresh uniforms and mock what you don't understand." He gestured to Tiana's insignia. "This patch represents the 42nd Expeditionary Force, humans who fought in the last Galactic War. When their world had barely discovered we existed." He began to pace, his tale capturing every cadet's attention. 60 years ago, the Zoran Collective nearly destroyed the Galactic Council. World after world fell to their advance. My home world was next. We'd called for reinforcements, but none came. Everyone was stretched too thin, fighting their own desperate battles. Peter found himself leaning forward, hanging on every word. He'd heard rumors, whispers in Earth's military archives, but never the full story. Then they arrived. Kaleth Thorne continued, his voice thick with emotion. 300 humans and ships that shouldn't have made it past our solar system's edge. They'd stolen experimental drives, retrofitted colony vessels, armed themselves with whatever weapons they could manufacture. They had no training in galactic warfare, no experience with alien tactics. By every military standard, they were suicide troops. The instructor's scales darkened with the memory. The 42nd held the line at Draxia Prime for 16 days against an enemy that outnumbered them 40-1. They learned our tactics in real time, adapted to weapons they'd never seen, fought alongside species they'd only just discovered existed. Colonel Sarah Chun commanded the defense of the orbital stations. When the Zarthan breached the hull of Station 7, she manually detonated the reactor core to take out their flagship, buying us time to evacuate 3 million civilians. Silence blanketed the hall. Tiana's eyes glistened, but she stood straight and tall. She survived, Kaleth Thorne added, seeing the unspoken question on every face. Barely found her in an escape pod 3 days later. More radiation in her body than any species should survive. But humans are stubborn. He looked directly at Tiana. Your grandmother saved my clutch mother, my siblings, and countless others that day. The 42nd lost 247 soldiers at Draxia Prime. Earth hadn't even been invited to join the Galactic Council yet, but they came anyway. The Veltrian cadet, who'd started the mockery, looked physically ill. The Zenthian female's bioluminescence had dimmed to almost nothing, a sign of deep shame in her species. Kaleth Thorne returned his attention to Tiana. Your grandmother was offered the Star of Valor, the highest military honor in the galaxy. She refused it, said she was just doing what any human would do, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. He paused, his voice softening. She wore that insignia every day for 40 years afterward. I was there at her funeral 10 cycles ago. I'm honored to see it worn again. Tiana's voice was steady when she spoke. She told me stories, sir, about Draxia Prime, about the friends she made, the lives she saved. She said the hardest part wasn't the fighting. It was coming home and trying to explain to people who'd never left Earth what she'd seen out there in the stars. And now you follow in her footsteps. It wasn't a question. Yes, sir. She made me promise to never let humanity forget that we're part of something bigger now. That the galaxy isn't just a place to explore. It's a community to protect. Kaleth Thorne nodded slowly, then turned to address the entire assembly once more. Let this be your first lesson at the Galactic Military Academy. Never judge a soldier by the newness of their uniform or the strangeness of their customs. That faded patch carries more honor than all your polished insignias combined. His eyes swept across the chastened cadets. Dismissed. Except you, Cadet Chin, and you, Morrison. As the other cadets filed out in subdued silence, Peter approached Tiana. She gave him a small nod of thanks for his earlier defense. Kaleth Thorne waited until they were alone. Cadet Chin, you'll find your grandmother's name on the Wall of Heroes in the Academy's War Memorial. I helped place it there myself. He looked between both humans. Earth is still new to the galactic stage, but the 42nd proved that humanity has something many older species have lost. The courage to stand for strangers, to fight for ideals bigger than yourselves. Don't let this galaxy forget that. Tiana touched the faded insignia one more time, feeling the weight of legacy and promise combined. We won't, sir. As they left the assembly hall, Peter finally spoke. Your grandmother sounds incredible. She was, Tiana replied, a sad smile crossing her face. She used to say that humans had something special. Not because we were stronger or smarter, but because we refused to accept that some fights weren't worth fighting. She glanced back at the hall. I guess she was right. Behind them in the empty assembly hall, Instructor Kaleth Thorne stood alone, staring at nothing. His clawed hand touched the scars on his scales. Burns from Zarthan weapons, souvenirs from a battle 60 years past. In his mind, he still saw the battered human ships arriving through impossible odds. Still heard Colonel Chin's voice over the comms. Draxia Prime, this is the Terran 42nd. We heard you needed a hand. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.